Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the Fourth Estate. Linda Jamii today issues a Solomonic direction on bipartisan talks disguised as national dialogue. In response to recent discussions surrounding bipartisan talks, it is imperative to clarify that Linda Jamii submitted a memoranda stating that such dialogues lacked a legal foundation and therefore risk being termed as null and void. The absence of a legal anchor raises concerns about the legitimacy and enforceability of any agreements resulting from such talks. We suggested that since Kenya is a multi-partisan democracy, it was imperative to ensure that not only all other political parties were involved, but other sections of the society, such as the civil society, religious organizations, the common man and woman on the street, will have been involved in these talks. Even though other members of society were invited to present their views, the discussion were exclusively between Azimio and UDA factions, specifically revolving around key figures of Raila Odinga and William Ruto. That is why the report was signed by both Kalonzo Musyoka and Ichungwa and presented to Raila and Ruto for consideration. Had there been a third party, ongoing potential rejection could have been moderated by other players. In that regard, these talks is not to be misconstrued as a national dialogue, as it does not encapsulate the broader spectrum of political, social, and economic voices within the country. The cost of living not only affect Kenya Kwanza and Azimio, but the civil society, religious organizations, private sector, and all Kenyans in general. Operation Linda Jamii, that is partisan to the Constitution of Kenya 2010, is alert to the fact that our Constitution, recognizing that sovereign power resides in the people, and not envision a scenario where state officers could unilaterally initiate anything leading to constitutional amendments. This prerogative remains firmly within the domain of the citizens, which is the reason Linda Jamii is defending the sanctity of our Constitution. In that regard, Linda Jamii will challenge in court any illegalities proposed by the committee report. Linda Jamii further stated that the constitution of the National Dialogue Committee and their technical team was done to deliberately ignore the cost of living, meaning that the bipartisan talks was a political process disguised to solve the economic problem called cost of living. In both the Dialogue Committee and their technical team, we did not see any economist and a team from Treasury included to help come up with an economic formula to solve the cost of living. We had recommended that before the dialogue began, Kenya Kwanza needed to suspend the Finance Act, which is at the heart of cost of living. We presented an economic formula to cure the cost of living, but Linda Jamii's Solomonic economic formula was neither discussed nor was it considered in the report. Linda Jamii is also very disappointed by the fact that the recommendations of the National Dialogue team lack any stroke of genius. Whatever they recommended could be reached at without deploying the resources which were used. We can't have such a high-profile team giving pedestrian recommendations as Kenyans wait. They have easily agreed on political positions to share, but found it very hard to agree on what affects Kenyans, which is cost of living. Those pretending to disagree with the report from either side of the coalitions are pretenders, since the co-chairs have signed the report. It is our take that National Treasury was supposed to be represented in the cost of living agenda of the bipartisan talks, and that technical team of economic experts was supposed to be constituted to review Kenyan debt, tax, and currency depreciation. They were then to come up with an economic model that will turn around the Kenyan economy by developing the Kenyan fiscal policy instead of allowing infiltration of Kenyan fiscal policy by the foreign institutions like IMF and World Bank. President Kibaki ignored these institutions and the Kenyan economy woke up from slumber. But now they are giving the Kenyan economy some doses of Puriton to get it back to sleep, as poverty, unemployment, investor flights, depreciating Kenya shillings, and the debt crisis bites Kenyans. It is in this light that we want to tell Kenyans that it has come to that time we realize that we are on our own, and waiting for the government to solve our problem is an exercise in futility, since they keep saying, wache wakule kwanza. The opposition is not helping us either when they consistently remind us Kenyans that we elected the current government to kule ujeuri yetu. The truth is, Kenyans are now tired of being reminded of an election that took place over a year ago. Kenyans want to move on with their lives, and that means failed leadership from both opposition and government is keeping us in an election mode. To move on, we need to acknowledge the following. One, let us appreciate President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga for the ceasefire that the bipartisan talks has delivered, and that's the only thing they have delivered. An economic problem cannot be solved with going to the streets violently. Political problems are to be solved politically, and that has been solved for now. Now we need to engage on an economic problem that has remained in spite of the ceasefire brought out by bipartisan talks. As the Kenya Kwanza says, we give them time, which is not coming, as opposition says, to kule ujeri yetu. Let's turn to God for his guidance and stop looking too much into government and opposition, just like the bipartisan talks have disappointed us Kenyans. Turning to God means seeking wisdom from God on where to go next. Remember, in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 15 says, there is nothing new under the sun. How did we navigate harsh economic times during President Moi? We focused on how to come together as a people of Kenya and found a solution to survive in the short term, but in the long term, by electing someone who knew about economics, that is Mwai Kibaki. I guess there are so many Kibakis among us, and that's what we need to seek their leadership. This is because it has come to that time when we should ask not what our country can do for us, but what can we do for our country. Second, peace and stability. For that to happen, Kenyans should take a covenant never again to be taken to the streets that ends up in violent fights with the police. In that regard, we invite you fellow Kenyans to join us, all of you, in the Linda Jamii Peace Run. Linda Jamii is a grassroots initiative representing people's desires for economic liberation. To fulfill this, on 16th of December 2023, Linda Jamii is organizing a peace marathon to serve as a platform for a national dialogue, providing a space for citizens to actively participate in shaping a new course for the nation through nonviolent means. Linda Jamii will be doing a lot of community-based financial literacy and economic empowerment, targeting mainly the youth and women, partnering with Jua Kali sector, cooperative movements to turn Jua Kali hubs into cottage industries that will birth the Kenyan industrial revolution without depending on what the government does, because this is what saved China. We need to revive our cooperative movements, to focus on productive cooperative, to raise capital for our cottage industries, rather than focusing only on financial cooperatives, which are slowly entering into a vicious cycle of debt. We'll engage our development partners to create jobs for the youth by investing in sports, music, arts, technology, among other youth-related talents, as an income-generating program for the youths. Thank you very much. I now invite my other members, the national team for Linda Jamii, to make their comments.